Hey everyone, my name is Henson. I'm from Feedback and today I have Jeff Schick with us, and he's from Florida. He's a seven-figure Amazon seller and also a attorney. And Jeff's gonna, try to help us here with some of the legal questions people have when they sell on Amazon. So, welcome, Jeff.
I want to say thank you to the Feedback team. Especially Henson for all the hospitality y'all have shown me. It's been a lot of fun so far. Like you said, I've been selling on Amazon as a seven-figure seller now. I guess it's 8 years. I started in 2011 back in the Wild West days, and now it's just grown from there. So I'm on Vendor Central and Seller Central. Have experience with both, both vendor direct fulfillment, vendor PO fulfillment, then seller, merchant fulfillment and FBA. So kind of pretty much across the spectrum with Amazon. I've got a lot of hands-on real-world experience. So that's always pretty cool, because when I get to talk to sellers, I've been in their shoes. So I know what they're going through. I know what they're dealing with, the emotions. I've had a suspension myself on my account, so I know what it's like to be suspended or to have your hero product get suspended as well. I mean, it's really, it's been a fun gig, but now it's really cool to be able to give back to sellers as an attorney as well. So I still sell. I'm also an attorney. Nice thing about that is I get to really learn from like what the clients are going through and help other clients based on what I learn, but without I never reveal any sort of confidential information. So what they give me it stays confidential, but you're able to generalize it and help other sellers and give them best practices based on, if someone's being suspended for this type of violation, you can pass it along with other sellers and say, hey, I've seen this as a risk area to avoid, and just, generalize it, of course. So it's been really cool. It's a fun ride, and it's great to be able to be part of these meetups and to share the information with other sellers. And so I think it's great what Feedback is doing by having these.
Yeah, thanks so much for that intro. So I guess maybe the first question I ask you is for some of the newer Amazon sellers, like what kind of legal advice would you give them to get started, like in terms of starting their business, where should they incorporate it if they live on, is there a certain place they should look into, what are the things that sellers in general have to watch out for before they even start selling on Amazon?
So I'd say the biggest risk that sellers run into when they first start out is the misinformation that's out there from a lot of the gurus. So there's some gurus that have never even sold, and they are great marketers, and so they'll have their affiliate link for everything. And so, for instance, the Wyoming LLC that certain gurus recommend, and then they say sign up through this link and you get a discount on this Wyoming LLC. First off, this guru probably has not sold anything on Amazon or doesn't sell very much on Amazon, so he's not a great source. Second of all, he's not a lawyer, and so he's telling you where you should be forming your LLC, and you're blindly taking it. So that's the first risk factor I see, because a lot of these sellers, they're not in Wyoming, so they're forming a Wyoming entity for some unknown reason. They're choosing that because someone told them to do it. But then that same seller doesn't realize that they also have to now form that foreign LLC as being qualified in their home state. So not only are you paying Wyoming their annual fee, you're paying your home state, which in California it's like $1,700 a year for LLC tax plus your franchise fee. And they're going to have to pay that either way. If you form a California LLC, you're going to pay the same fee, but now you're stacking Wyoming's, several $100s a year on top of it. And so you're quickly escalating your costs in ways that could have been avoided if you'd gotten competent legal advice. So I'd say the first thing you need to do if you're starting out is find a lawyer that understands e-commerce, like your neighborhood, ambulance chaser, probably not a good source to go to for Amazon advice. But then at the same token, find a good CPA. So there's a lot of there's accountants out there, and there's a difference between accountants and CPAs. And so accountants don't have to have a license, CPAs do. And so make sure you have a good CPA, you've got a good lawyer, just so you have because if you're going to operate a business, you need to treat it like a business. You have to first determine, is this a hobby or a business? And then that determines how you go forward, because I've seen sellers in some of the Facebook groups, and they'll be like, oh, I want to DIY a patent opposition for my number one selling product. And he's like, I make $100,000 a year from this one product. How do I file? But now my competitor is trying to patent it. How do I file the opposition? And I'm like, you call a lawyer for that. You don't you're telling me this is worth $100,000 a year to you, but you're trying to find some form that someone else maybe got it right, maybe got it wrong, and you're going to take that to the United States Patent Trials Appeal Board and think that you're going to be able to represent yourself and do it, like, good luck, so it really becomes, you have to make that decision, treat it like a business or a hobby, and then from there you'll be able to invest in great software, because if you're running as a business, you get to invest in software that helps your business. If you're buying software and you've got a good accountant, they're going to help you take tax deductions for it. So everything you buy for the business gets tax deducted for the most part, within reason. So it really is, start with a proper foundation for the business, so that way you can set it up for success, and then you'll grow and hopefully be able to sell it down the line because it was set up to begin with correctly.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. And I think most important thing is, if you're going to start selling on Amazon, make sure, like Jeff said, set everything up correctly.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to undo some of the things if you don't do it right in the beginning, right? It might take you more time and cost you more money.
Exactly.
Right? So it's good, always good to get some good legal advice. And Google is a great resource, but a lot of information on there, or the forms that you download, might not be up to date, and
right.
It could be the wrong information. So
exactly.
Yeah. So I guess the other question I wanted to really ask you was, for the people that are already selling on Amazon, one of the biggest headaches is, competing with competitors that try to take you down, right? Yeah. There's a lot of black hat stuff that people do, but there's also a lot of malicious things that other competitors, once they see that, hey, there's a new seller, they're trying to sell the same product I'm selling, and then they either hijack your listing, or they do really bad things to other sellers, right? So I've encountered some of that myself, and one of the features that we recently released and feedback is the hijacker alerts, yeah. Which basically tells users if there's another person trying to sell the same item or jump on their listing, and we send them an alert. But after they get the alert, most of the sellers ask us, like, what do we do from here? Do I send them a CND letter? Like, how do I figure out who they are, and what would you suggest sellers do?
So it really comes down to, like, finding a lawyer that understands Amazon. Because when you've got a hijacker, like, if you want to be able to fight them, you've got to have the proper legal foundation in place. So if you don't have your trademarks lined up, if you don't have all the legal foundational documents and tools all lined up to play a game of chess with the person who's being a hijacker, then you're going to fail at removing them, because Amazon's going to send you their standard email template back saying, thank you for your report, but we're unable to act upon it because we respect the rights of manufacturers to enter into exclusive distribution contracts, but we don't enforce them for you. And that's the email they'll send back to you when you try to take down your hijacker, if you haven't done things correctly. But if you've gotten that legal foundation, you'll be able to submit either the proper reports to Amazon if it's counterfeit, and that's a big thing too. You don't want to submit fake counterfeit reports. First off, it's interfering with somebody's business. Second, and if you're wrong, they could actually turn around and sue you for it. The second aspect of submitting counterfeit reports is that Amazon takes an approach with sellers that if the boy who cries wolf. So if you keep crying wolf and saying that you've got a counterfeiter and you've got a counterfeiter, and then Amazon figures out that you really don't have a counterfeiter, you've just got a hijacker, and there's a very big distinction between the two. They're going to eventually stop responding to your reports at all. And then when you do have a legitimate counterfeit issue, they're not going to respond, or it's going to take them 2 to 3 weeks to respond. And then you're going to have all the lost sales that goes with that. So
quick question about the counterfeiter. One of my good friends sold on Amazon, and he had a counterfeiter jump on their listing, and he reported to Amazon. And what Amazon ended up doing was they shut down the entire listing, and they decided to investigate both him and the counterfeiter to determine who's actually telling the truth. Right. So is there a better way to do that, to not get, because what ended up happening is he's lost millions of dollars, right? Because now he no longer has a listing. The listing's gone. His ranking started to drop, right? And it took him months before he get reinstated again. So what would you suggest is the best strategy if there was a hijacker or counterfeiter that came on your listing? Like, what should I do immediately
Immediately? I mean, that's where it really comes down to having, because every situation is different. So what works for, seller A might be totally different than the strategy for seller B. So there's no one-size-fits-all solution for hijackers. And that's where a lot of the issues stem from is, people think like, oh, well, my friend got this cease and desist letter written by an attorney, and it looks great, and it works for him. Or my friend got the cease and desist letter that he wrote himself, and it works. Those are the best, and those ones are even better, because a lot of times you'll see a cease and desist letter that's based on totally incorrect interpretations of the law, but they'll send that out and then hope, it's basically like throwing stuff against the wall and hoping that it sticks, and most of the time it doesn't, because it doesn't work. I mean, if you've got a cease and desist letter that you send out that's, talking about, a totally different product, or it's talking about patents and you don't even have a patent on your product, or it's talking about copyright infringement and there's no copyrights, most experienced sellers are going to get that, and they're going to look at it and they'll be like, newbie, totally. Whereas if you have a legitimate cease and desist letter that's written by an attorney that's like specifically laid out, these are the facts and circumstances, this is why it's wrong, like why you need to take your listing, your offer off this listing, that's going to be a lot more effective than the one-size-fits-all C&D that somebody found off Google and hopes that it's going to work. And so that's where, like working with your attorney, they'll be able to tell you, should you file a C&D or should you go straight to Amazon, because they're going to evaluate it. Because when, in some cases it makes sense to tell Amazon that I've got a counterfeit issue. But the attorney is going to help you figure that out, and they're going to tell you your risk factors and when it's appropriate to file those infringement complaints, and they're going to help you file it in a way where it's written such that you're not going to have your listing get taken down. Because I'm sure that your friend who lost all the money from the listing going down, if he did it himself, that might be one of the reasons, is because he wrote. Yeah, he did it himself. I think that was the issue. He didn't know what he was doing, and he thought he was doing the right thing by letting Amazon know that there's a counterfeit. But Amazon ended up, maybe he didn't give enough evidence, like you said, right? He didn't lay out all the stuff that he had. So Amazon ended up just shutting down the entire listing, and then they had to do their own internal investigation, which cost them quite a bit of money. Correct. Not having any sales. So that's actually some really good advice. And so thank you so much, Jeff, today for stopping by. And Jeff will be speaking at our meetup today, so there's going to be a lot of more content and a lot more other questions that Jeff will go through. But so check out our video for the meetup. And thanks, Jeff, for coming in. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and for more information, please visit feedbackwiz.com.